All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mainly Hoops podcast, where we're doing the Big 12 preseason awards show, diving right into it. If you are liking our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support. But we're going to go right into it. Who wins the Big 12 this year? Cody, we're going to start off with you.
Yeah, I'm not going to go all that bold here. I'm going to go with the Houston Cougars. They win basically every league they play in since Kelvin Sampson's been there. They dominated the American. People questioned if they were going to be any good in this league, if they could even be a top 3 team in this league perennially. And Sampson has shut everyone up. I mean, this is their 3rd year in the league, right? And they won the first 2 years and kind of ran away with it last year. Wouldn't surprise me if they did that again. It's going to be the best defense in the country, and it's really an offense that has more upside than it had last year, in my opinion. Like with the freshmen of Harwell, Sanak, and Kingston Fleming's probably coming off the bench, and you retain 2 of the best guards in the country, and Milo Suzan and Emmanuel Sharp, and I think just the added offensive upside, particularly with Sanak as the front court floor spacer, like he brings everything that Sampson wants, like as a rebounder and an energy guy and a lob threat cutter. He adds an element with his shooting, like either in a pick and pop game. Like we've never seen a Houston big with like some sort of pick and pop element or just ability to put the ball on the deck as a 5-man. But I think Sanak's going to be able to do that. And that only makes this team even more dangerous. So yeah, Houston, best team in this league, probably the best team in the country entering the season.
Marcus, are you in agreement? You got Houston winning the Big 12.
I am. To me, there's really nowhere else to go here. And I'm not going to really add too much more. I just think, retaining what they did, bringing in what they did for freshmen. They didn't even go through the portal really this year, right? I mean, they brought in one guy, and otherwise it's just been freshmen and what they have coming back. They're going to be probably the best defense in the country. They're going to be really good on the offensive end, like Cody was just saying. And ultimately, that's what's going to lead to them being probably the best team in the country for the entire season. So to me, I just don't see a world where they don't win this league. But, there are obviously other really good teams in this league. I just think Houston is a step above all of those teams right now.
Yeah. We're going to lead right into that.
I will say, hold on real quick. I will say that I did consider BYU and Texas Tech. I think they're going to have 2 of the best offenses in the entire country. BYU has an improved defense, and I just think Texas Tech's star power gives them a chance in this league. So ultimately, I wouldn't be shocked if Houston didn't win this league. I think it's up to those 3 teams, and the top 6 in this league are all really good. I think Kansas, if their offense puts it together, I think they have a chance. Iowa State obviously has a fantastic defense, and I think they tied for the championship the first year with Houston. So they obviously have a shot as well. And Arizona has plenty of upside, but ultimately, I mean, Houston's just been so good since Sampson's been there.
Marcus, I'll let you talk about any other contenders that you can see dethroning Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a few other teams that are all really good. I think, like we talked about, I think in several of our team previews, it's like there's a clear top 6 right in this league, and I think the other 5 teams could potentially win it. I think especially BYU, Texas Tech, and I think Kansas, especially with their defense that they're going to have this year. They're going to have Darren Peterson, who is the number 1 recruit in my eyes in the country. I know that's not what some of the rankings say, but they're going to be really good, coached by one of the best coaches that we've seen over the last 25 years. And then you have teams like Cody said, Arizona and Iowa State, who I don't expect Iowa State to win it, but maybe they surprise some people. They just have too many question marks, in my opinion. And Taman Lipsey's hurt; they're a bit banged up overall. So I do worry a bit more about them, especially this year. But those 5 other teams in the top 6, I think, are all worthy of mentioning because they're all coached by really good coaches and have a lot of high level talent also.
Are there any sleeper picks in the Big 12? Maybe, but make the tournament and make a run. Cody, is there any teams in mind? Any sleepers?
Yeah, actually, I'll save mine for my bold prediction, but I do have a team down the board that can make some noise in this league, in my opinion, if they reach their ceiling.
All right, Marcus, are you saving yours too, or you got a sleeper pick that could
No, I
make a run in the
mean,
tournament?
not necessarily a sleeper pick to win this league, because I don't think this team can win this league, but I think they can maybe be a little bit better depending on the freshmen coming in particular. I know we have concerns about their defense. Cody alluded to Baylor's potential shift in defensive scheme. We'll see. But I think Baylor, if they do make some changes and Yesufu ends up being kind of what he looks like he could be, I think Baylor could be quite a bit better than we think.
All right, we're gonna move along here to the all-conference first team. We're gonna start off with that, and Cody, I'll let you list off your first team first.
Yep. I'll start with my player of the year. It's JT Toppin. I think he wins back-to-back Big 12 player of the year, and I mean it's kind of crazy that he won this award while not even getting to 30 minutes a game. I think he got to what, 27, 28 maybe. Yeah, 27.2 minutes a game, and he still averaged 18 points and 9 rebounds. He didn't get put in jail early in the season. He was splitting minutes with Federico, and he missed some time with injury as well, but he would pick up a couple fouls and he would sit for a while, or he wasn't doing things defensively that McCaslin wanted him to do, and he got put on the bench for some minutes. But I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to play at least 30 to 32 minutes per game this year, and who knows what those numbers are going to look like. He's probably has a little bit more responsibility now, through the post as a short roll guy. I think he can average 22 points and 12 rebounds a game, maybe. I think he's going to have some of the craziest counting stats in the country, and ultimately he's my player of the year. But for the rest of my first team, I considered Darren Peterson to win this award too. I think he's going to have a lot of responsibility at Kansas, and then went with Milo Suzanne from Houston. He's going to have more on-ball responsibility as well, and he's just a great two-way player in general. And I went with PJ Haggerty from Kansas State, has one of the highest offensive floors in the entire country. I think he's going to be a real impact right away for Jerome Tang. And then my last one might be kind of a shot. I went with Joshua Jefferson at Iowa State. I think he's one of the best two-way players in the entire country. He's going to have to take on a lot of responsibility early in the season with Taman Lipsey missing some time. Going to be a real post hub, handoff hub. He's going to do a lot of different things for this offense, and I'm excited to watch it.
Marcus, I'll let you kick it off with the player of the year and then go right into the all-first team.
I had the same player of the year as well, JT Toppin. I think it makes too much sense. He's going to have a lot more on his plate, with particularly, the depth being a bit more lacking at Texas Tech this year. So I'd expect, a larger usage rate. And I think he's going to, like Cody said, probably play more minutes. He's going to put up big numbers every night. So that's where I went there. Cody, not that big of a shot, because I had Joshua Jefferson on my first team as well. I think my thought process too was Lipsey's out. I think he's a really, really talented player and can generate offense for this team as both a scorer and, for others. And then I went Darren Peterson also. I think, again, he's just going to be so dominant. And then here's where I went two different guys than you had. I actually put two teammates here, particularly for their offensive game. I went AJ DeBansa and Richie Saunders on my first team. I think BYU is going to be the second best team in this league, more than likely. And both of those guys, I think, like I said in their team preview, are probably going to average a combined 34, I would guess, somewhere in that ballpark. And if they're, as good as we think they're going to be offensively, and, they maintain relatively the same national standing, I think I could see both these guys on this list. But this league is littered with really great talents. We were talking off camera, right? We had to make 3 teams for this league just because we felt bad for leaving some guys out.
Yeah, we're gonna get a little more into that talent. Cody, let's hear your second team.
Yeah, Richie Saunders and AJ DeMansa were the first 2 guys I left off. I mean, I guess there's a third guy. It was Tunde Yesufu. I think he has real first team upside. I think if Baylor reaches its ceiling and he's the guy that I think he is, like he's a player of the year dark horse. I don't completely see it because I think Toppin is like kind of the runaway favorite for this award, but I do think Yesufu has real upside. So I added him to the second team as well. And I went with Emmanuel Sharp from Houston, just probably one of the best shooters in the country. And he's a very underrated defender. People don't talk about his defense. People kind of view him almost as like the weak link on the side of the ball. I think it's just kind of because of his build, but I do think he's a phenomenal lateral mover and overall just a better athlete than people perceive him to be. So I put him on my second team. Then the last guy I went with was Koa Pete from Arizona. I think he's going to have a lot on his plate on both sides of the ball, particularly on the defensive end as the 4. I have my concerns with Owaka and Krivas being able to play next to each other for consistent minutes. So I think Koa Pete is going to have a lot on his plate.
Marcus, let's hear your second team.
Shocked Barrington Hargress didn't make second team for you.
He was close.
Yeah. For me, second team, I went Milos Uzan and Emmanuel Sharp. Both they're going to be one of the best guard tandems on the best team in the country, as we talked about earlier. I also went PJ Haggerty. I left him off first team primarily because of perceived like team success. I think this it's no knock against him, and I know that doesn't always get taken into account. But he nothing against him. He could very easily make first team and average 20, 22, 23 points a game again. And then I went with Tunde Yesufu as well. And then to round it out, I went with Taman Lipsey, more of a projection that he does get back a little bit sooner, maybe by that like Thanksgiving week, end of November, and he ends up, being as impactful as he always is on both ends of the floor.
All right, Cody, let's hear your third team.
Yeah. Well, the aforementioned Barrington Hargress makes the third team. He's going to have so much responsibility there, and I think he's ready for it. I think he's ready for the Big 12 level. Absolutely. Almost added Taman Lipsey to the second team. Ultimately went with him as a third teamer. Just a little bit worried about that injury, but if he comes back, starts the season healthy, I think he could be one of the best players in this league, obviously. And I went with Texas Tech guard Christian Anderson on my third team. I think he's ready for a year 2 breakout. He's one of the most talented perimeter on-ball scorers, or he's probably the most underrated one in the entire country, but I do think he's very good on the offensive side. Then I went with Flory Badunga from Kansas. I think he's ready for a breakout. I think he's arguably the best rim protector in this entire league. I know that might be up for debate with some other guys, but I do think he's ready. I think he's ready for an offensive leap as well with Hunter Dickinson out the door. And then my final one was Chris Sinak from Houston. I love the upside that he brings to the table. I love the added dimension that he brings for the Houston offense. And he's a fantastic defender, can play the 4 or the 5. Like he's going to be able to play next to Tugler. Then when a guy like Khalifa Sacco enters the game, is like Sacco's like only a 5. Chris Sinak can slide down to the 4, guard on the perimeter well enough. I think he's going to be a fantastic player right away.
Marcus, let's hear it with your third team.
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, I went Barrington Hargress as well. Christian Anderson, he's going to have a lot on his plate as, the primary ball handler for Texas Tech. And he's going to be relied on, I think, for a lot of their perimeter scoring. And then I also went with Chris Sinak as well. Just I think his upside on both ends of the floor is really remarkable for, like Cody said earlier, like something that Houston hasn't really had before. Then I went Koa Pete here on my third team. Like Arizona is going to be a really good team, and he's going to be the biggest reason why, I think, on both ends of the floor. Versatility his strength should stand out right away. And then my last player I went with another BYU player. Actually, I went with Rob Wright, as kind of the orchestrator of that offense. He didn't get paid $4 million for nothing. So he better be on the third team. Otherwise, it's not a great investment in my opinion, but he's going to be really important to generating offense for that team. And, he can get into the lane, I think, very easily and be, one of the best players in this league.
Cody, who's the defensive player of the year for the Big 12?
Yeah, I was between two guys here, and I don't know if Houston fans are going to be all that happy with me. I went with Tamin Lipsey. If he comes back healthy, he has shown that he's the best defender in this league before. His last season at full strength, he won this award. He's just one of the best ball hawks in the entire country. He does everything well on and off the ball, plays with so much energy. He's from the Ames area, so he just naturally plays 110% all the time. He grew up going to those games, so he leaves it all out on the floor when he's out there, and I think he's just a phenomenal defender. I was between him and JoJo Tugler. Tugler won this award last year, but my concern is that can he stay on the floor for any longer than 25 minutes? Like, I just didn't want to give the award to a guy that's going to foul a little bit too often and can't be a guy that plays 30 minutes. I think part of a requirement of being a defensive player of the year is like being available. And like, if you get 2 fouls and have to sit out the rest of the half, you do that within 5 minutes. Like, where's the value that you're bringing to the table? When Tugler's on the floor, he's probably the best defender in the country, but I had to go with Lipsey.
Let's hear it from you, Marcus. Did you agree or?
Yeah. So 3 hours ago, I had Tamin Lipsey written down, and 2 hours and 59 minutes ago, I changed it to JoJo Tugler. And I think like last year, right, he won Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He also won the Lefty Drysdale Award for the best defender in college basketball. He just plays so much bigger than his size. Like, he's 6'7" and he plays like he's 7'3". And like you make a valid point about him being able to stay on the floor. I just think when he is on the floor, his value, of course, is just through the roof on the defensive end, and is what makes Houston that formidable to play against. He's legit on the defensive end with his ability to protect the rim, to guard multiple positions. His length is ridiculous. So ultimately why I went here, but I was right there. Tamin Lipsey is elite as well.
All right, Cody, who's your breakout player of the year?
Yeah, just one final thing on Tugler is like he played 53% of the minutes, and he still led the country in defensive box plus minus at 6.7. Like, it's just ridiculous what he brings to the table. 6'7", 12% block rate is just unbelievable stuff. But for my breakout player of the year, I went with Keanu Dawes out of Utah. There were some other guys that I considered here. I would have gone with Kamari McGriff, but he technically doesn't meet like a breakout player requirement. He played over 20 minutes, had averaged more than 10 points per game, so I couldn't really go with him. So I went with Keanu Dawes. I think he's going to be a really good two-way player for Alex Jensen in his first year. It's going to make it a lot easier on him to coach, particularly on the defensive side. He can play multiple positions, and I think he's going to have to take on more of the offensive load in a half-court setting, whether that's through the post, attacking slower-footed big men from the top of the key. I think he's a guy that can get to 13 to 14 points per game, potentially even get to 10 rebounds a game. Is a great two-way rebounder. So I think he's an underrated guy that not a lot of people talk about.
Marcus, who's your breakout player?
Yeah, I went with Xavier Edmonds, and I could look like a fool here. Like I talked about in TCU team preview, like we haven't seen him really play in 2 years. All right, he was at a JUCO, but the talent looks like it's there, right? He looks like he can do things on both ends of the floor. He can play in transition. He's a bigger guy, right? 6'9", can get out and offensive rebound and dunk on people. And I think he also has floor spacing ability. So I went with him just because of what the tape shows his upside could be. Obviously, like I said, we haven't seen him play in a couple of years, so there's some risk in this pick, but I'm willing to ride with it.
All right, we're going to move right along to Coach of the Year. And I think I know Cody's answer, but I'm going to ask him anyways. Cody, who's your Coach of the Year?
I don't know if I went with a different guy than I think. I went with Kevin Young from BYU. I think there is serious upside for them to win this league. The defensive improvements that he made from a personnel perspective, I think is gonna lead this team to having true championship upside. And I think they could finish second in the league and he still wins this. Like Houston could win by a game or two. And I don't know if they would give it to Sampson. Maybe there's some voter fatigue sitting in there. Just they're expected to do that. I think BYU is expected to be near the top, but if they can finish second in the league, I think the award is his. I considered Sampson. I considered Grant McCasland, Tommy Lloyd, and then one final coach that I'll save for bold predictions. Again, don't want to, get rid of that take right now.
Marcus, something says you may have had the same Coach of the Year.
I went the same way, and it's for very similar reasons. I think like Kelvin Sampson, his team is obviously the best team in the country if you were to ask anyone right now, but Kevin Young has put together what he has now at BYU in a very short amount of time, and he brought in, a great class, one of the top recruits in the country, one of the best transfers in the country, retained what he did, and he's really built something there at BYU. So to me, it's like, for what he's constructed for a roster, and what they're expected to finish, if they do finish at the top, like in that top 2 or 3, which I expect them to, I think he wins the award.
I'll take Sampson. I don't always participate, but one of us has to take Sampson.
Fair. You take a stand. You deserve it.
Yeah, I'll take Sampson for the Coach of the Year. But we're going to move right along to how many teams are making the tournament and who's making the tournament in the Big 12. Cody.
Yeah, I have 8. I think there's 6 obvious ones in Houston, BYU, Texas Tech, Arizona, Kansas, and Iowa State. And then I do think I think Baylor is going to get in as well. There could be bubble conversations with them depending on what the defense looks like. And then I think you're going to get one of either Cincinnati, Kansas State, or West Virginia. I think one of those teams emerges, and I just don't really see much going on at the bottom. I think this is a pretty top-heavy league. Once you get past the first 8 or 9, I see a pretty significant drop-off. So it feels pretty clear to me that I think the least amount that they can get is 7, and I think the most they can get is 9.
And what's your bold prediction? We'll keep it with you here.
Here's my bold prediction. I think actually I have 2. I'll rattle off both of them here. My first one is the team that I've been saving. I think Kansas State makes the Sweet 16 this season. I just really like this roster. I really love the upside of some of these pieces. I haven't talked about Kamari McGriff much. I talked about him in the team preview quite a bit, but I think he's due for a huge breakout this season. He has a lot of, I've mentioned this, he has a lot of JT Toppin characteristics. He's not JT Toppin by any means. He's not the same guy on the glass, but his ability in short roll and post up, I think is going to make him like a real number 2 option on a Big 12 team. Like he's going to be an above average number 2 option. And then I think they have some other pieces down the board. I really like Andrea Kostic. Obviously, Marcus's guy, Nate Johnson, is coming from Akron. Really good defender. We talked about it in the team preview. He's going to play that Cam Carter role, and he's potentially like better on the offensive end than Cam Carter. So there's just a lot of pieces that I like. There's some depth pieces that I really don't enjoy watching, like a guy like Marcus Johnson. I don't really understand how his game is going to translate. Not really a Bashir guy. He can shoot it, but I don't really love his game outside of that. But this is a team I really like. I think they're not definitely going to make the tournament, but in my opinion, I think there's a 50% chance or greater that they make it. I think that's a fairly unpopular opinion. And then my second bold prediction is I think 3 coaches in this league get fired. And I went with is this yours too?
It's one of mine.
Okay. You have 2. Okay. I'll list them off then. I went, Cincinnati doesn't make the tournament. Wes Miller's gone. I think Bobby Hurley's gone from Arizona State. We talked about that. And I think Johnny Dawkins gets let go from UCF.
Marcus, who's making the tournament for you? And let's hear your bold prediction as well.
I had 8 as well. I think there's the obvious 6 that Cody mentioned, plus Baylor. And then I actually went with West Virginia as my 8th one. But I think, to Cody's point, I think any of those 3 he mentioned there in West Virginia, Cincinnati, Kansas State could be that 8th team, and it very well could be 9 teams that get in. I felt comfortable with that number at 8. And then bold prediction. I mean, the first part of the first bold prediction I have isn't that bold. And it's probably not that bold in general, but it kind of has to be bold because, again, if anybody watched the Houston preview, like Kelvin Sampson has never won a championship. So one of mine is that the Big 12 wins the national title this year, and it's Houston. So Kelvin Sampson doing something he's never done. And then the second one, I said the Big 12 will be looking for 4 new head coaches at the end of the season. All 3 you mentioned, and I have this, for some reason, I have this little suspicion that Tad Boyle and Colorado just split. Maybe he just gets done altogether. I think he's a good coach, but I think that I could see that being a split or maybe one other surprise somewhere in there.
All right, we're going to wrap up the Big 12 here. As always, thank you for listening to the Mainly Hoops podcast.